Hi, I'm Luke Nichols with the law firm of Nichols and Green, and this is
Alberto Salvado, the law firm of Salvado, Salvado, and Salvado.
And we're just going to talk to you a little bit about the punishments that come with DUIs here in Virginia. There's a lot of complicated issues with DUIs, depending on how many priors you have, what your blood alcohol content is, whether or not you have a minor in the car. Those all affect the various levels of punishments, but there's a lot of confusion about that. First off, in order to understand the penalties with DUIs, you have to understand the differences between mandatory and discretionary jail time. And so, for instance, mandatory jail time is...
Well, mandatory jail time is first of all, you have certain laws that the legislature decided to make mandatory jail time, meaning, as Mr. Nichols pointed out, a 0.15 or higher on DWI first. On a 0.15 and lower than a 0.21, you actually would get 5 days mandatory jail time. When you get mandatory jail time, you are no longer given that good time credit that one would get on a regular jail time sentence. For instance, on a DWI first with a regular BAC, but maybe there was some sort of an accident involved, and you go to trial, the judge gives you 10 days, you actually would serve 5 days of that. Because for every day that you actually complete in jail, it's actually counted as 2. But mandatory jail time does not have that. And there's a couple of instances on the DUI law that changes the mandatory jail time quite a bit.
Yeah, so your blood alcohol content is a big deal. You mentioned 0.15. So if you're 0.15 or up to a 0.20, you get 5 days of mandatory jail time. You have to serve a full 5 days. No good time off for good behavior. If you're higher than a 0.20, then it's 10 days of mandatory jail time on a standard first. Now, if you have a second DUI, if this is not your first DUI, it's your second one within 10 years, then that gets ratcheted up, and I believe it's 10 days of extra jail time for having a 0.15 to 0.20, and an additional 10 days, or for higher than that. So 20 days more.
Right, and that's actually on top of what the additional mandatory jail time you get just for the fact that it is a second DUI.
Yeah.
And that's actually split up into 2 different categories as well. If it's your second DWI within a period of 10 years, you have an additional 10 days of mandatory jail time, along with mandatory license suspension of 3 years, but that's besides the point. If it's the second time within 5 years of your first, you actually would be getting 20 days mandatory jail time. Again, that's not 10 you'd serve, you would serve the full 20 days. Now, as Mr. Nichols was saying, you get ratcheted up quite a bit. So on a 0.22, second and 5 DWI, you actually would end up serving
40 days in jail. 40 days in jail. And if you're a 0.15 on your second DUI in 5 years, then you would be doing 30 days in jail. If you were a second within 10 years, and with no elevated BAC, you'd be doing 10 days. And then if you do get a 0.15 for your second and 10, then you do 20 days. And then if you get a higher than a 0.20 on a second and 10, that's 30 days.
Now, that affects people in many different ways. Obviously, if nobody wants to go to jail, we all know that. We appreciate that. However, sometimes jail sentences are given to people on those facts. But some jurisdictions actually are a little bit more accommodating. For instance, in Alexandria, I do believe on mandatory jail time sentences, you could still request a work release or perhaps even doing your jail time during the weekends. Fairfax and I don't believe Prince William allow for that. It's, those 2 jurisdictions, they definitely require you to go in. Once you turn yourself in, you are not leaving until you actually serve the entire jail sentence.
Yeah, there's also some other rules with that too. Like for Prince William, for instance, if you have non-mandatory jail time, you would normally only have to serve half of it. So let's say you get 10 days of non-mandatory jail time, you would be released after 5 days. Okay. In Prince William County, if you choose to serve your non-mandatory time on the weekends, you have to serve 100% of it. So on the weekends in Prince William County, your discretionary jail time is served 100%, just like mandatory jail time. But other jurisdictions like Fairfax, it's not like that. You still can do weekends and get half off for good behavior on discretionary jail time.
Yes, and it's good to know. Your attorney should be able to explain to you the consequences of not only the mandatory jail time, depending on what charge you're given or what you would be found guilty of, if in fact you are found guilty of it. And they'll be able to tell you with a reasonable amount of certainty of what would happen or what the jails do with that mandatory jail time. There seems to be a little bit of a conflict. I believe it's in Fairfax, for instance. I don't think the judges want to put you in jail to lose your job per se, but the jail system, the sheriff, they will not honor a weekend on mandatory jail time. I believe there's a little bit of a internal struggle there.
Yeah.
It might be something with record keeping but really the best way to avoid that is to not go out and get arrested on a DUI second.
Or hire us.
And hopefully we'll try our best. We'll try our best to make sure that we'll limit your exposure to any sort of a mandatory jail time.
Yeah, and there's a variety of things you can do. Obviously, winning the case is the number one option. If you can walk away with nothing, that's great. Or if you can negotiate with the prosecutor. As you say, there's a lot of differences in the different types of jail time. So if you do have to go to jail, restructuring it so it's discretionary jail time versus mandatory jail time, or how you do it, is often something that we can do in plea deals. So that's another factor that can go into it.
And also we've utilized delayed reporting times. Perhaps you could work it with your employer that you would be getting a vacation or taking some time off from work, and the impact on your employment would be diminished quite a bit. So
another big thing is knowing how your local jurisdiction calculates jail time. So using Fairfax and Prince William as an example, Fairfax calculates days in jail by calendar day. So if you go to jail at 11 p.m., by 1 a.m. the next morning, you've done 2 days in jail. Prince William County does a 24-hour calendar. So for instance, if you go in and you get arrested on a Saturday night, you get arrested 4 hours later Sunday morning, you've done 4 hours. That's how they calculate it. So understanding those differences are really important. So for instance, if you have a deal in Fairfax County where you spent 4 hours, you got arrested and you went on a Saturday morning and you got out on a Sunday, you've got 2 days time served. So then you turn yourself in on the day of your trial, that's another day. And then, so you can see very quickly the rounding errors accumulate, and then you end up getting out of jail after pretty much 1 full day in jail. Prince William County, the same person with the same outcome would end up spending essentially 4 days in jail.
Now, and here's just a question now does Prince William County give you an option of arranging for a ride at a certain time? If you leave, for instance, if you leave at 12:01 a.m. versus waiting until 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I believe they do that still, though there's some talk about them changing the policy. So,
yes.
So you get released from jail at 7 a.m. in the morning unless somebody shows up by 11:30 and tells the jail, I'm here to pick them up, then they let you out at midnight. So
I believe they have to be prearranged. I know there's some concerns. It used to be like that in Fairfax where they would release their inmates at 12:01 a.m., but due to a lot of complaints with the local residents, I think they've stopped that because they don't want people walking around in the streets without having any place to go and just having their bags with their belongings in that was just handed to them by the magistrate as they walked out. So for Fairfax, it looks like 12:01 a.m. is no longer a release time. It'd probably be at 8 o'clock in the morning. So these are other things that you should consider when dealing with work in jail time.
And this goes to a bigger point too, is make sure you talk to a local attorney, somebody who specializes in Fairfax County and Prince William County, who does these, works there and defends people a lot there. If you start getting somebody, if I were to go to a county like Virginia Beach or something, I would have no clue how their jail works, how anything, you'd just be like a fish out of water. So you need somebody who does a lot of DUI cases in that jurisdiction, and they know that jurisdiction well. That's a big help.
Someone who knows that jurisdiction, and if they don't know the answer, they know who to call to get that information, which department to call. And when you practice in a certain area, you get to know the people there, and they get to know you, and they're usually much more willing to cooperate with the attorney as far as getting information that you need.
Well, at any rate, and so this gives you kind of a little sample of some of the issues with DUI jail time. However, pick up the phone and give us a call anytime. Both of us do free consultations, and you can see our numbers here up on the screen. And so if you want, just give us a call and we're happy to talk to you. We can tell you exactly the type of charge you're facing, what the likely outcomes are, what defenses you have, what we think we can do for you, and then we can give you a flat fee for our services. At any rate, give us a call. We'll be happy to talk to you, and thanks for watching.
Thank you.